I dialed my son's number, heart racing with joy, then his words shattered me. My fingers, wrinkled from years of hard work, trembled as I held the phone. David's voice, once warm like summer rain, was now sharp, slicing through the line. "Mom, you're too old to travel," he said, each syllable heavy, like stones dropping into my chest. Too old. I'm 68, not frail, not done living. I pictured his new house, a cozy porch, us laughing over coffee. Instead, his tone was iced, distant, like a stranger's. I sat in my quiet kitchen, the clock ticking too loud. The phone call was supposed to be simple. I wanted to visit, to see his new life in that far-off city. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years, not since he moved for work. I missed his laugh, his stories. I'd spent weeks planning, imagining his smile when I arrived, but he cut me off. "It's not a good time," he muttered. No explanation, no softness. My throat tightened. Was he ashamed of me? I stared at the faded photo on my fridge. David at 10, grinning, holding my hand. Where was that boy now? I raised him alone, you know. His father left when David was 5, leaving me with bills and a broken heart. I worked double shifts at the diner, my feet aching, to keep us fed. Nights were spent helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, teaching him to be kind. I sacrificed dreams, a degree, a trip abroad for him. Now, his words stung like betrayal. Too old. I still walked 2 miles daily, tended my garden. I wasn't weak, but his dismissal made me feel small, like I didn't matter anymore. I sat there, the phone still warm in my hand, replaying his voice. Something wasn't right. He wasn't just busy. There was a weight behind his words, a secret he wouldn't share. My heart ached, but curiosity burned too. Why push me away? I wiped a tear, staring at the suitcase in the corner. It had been years since I'd traveled, but maybe it was time to find out what my son was hiding. He said I was too old, but I wasn't letting my son push me away. I stood in my living room, the sting of David's words still fresh. My hands shook as I poured tea, the cup's warmth grounding me. I felt small, like my years had stolen my place in his life. But something inside me stirred, a spark of defiance. I'd raised him alone, faced harder days than this. I wasn't done being his mother. The idea of showing up unannounced felt reckless, but it grew, like a seed taking root in my heart. Clara, my neighbor, stopped by that afternoon. At 70, she was all fire and wisdom, her silver hair tied back, eyes sharp. "Margaret," she said, leaning across my kitchen table, "you don't let anyone tell you you're worth not, even your son." Her words hit like sunlight breaking through clouds. She told me about her own fight, standing up to a family who'd dismissed her. "Go," she urged. "Show him you're still here." I nodded, her strength seeping into me. I could do this. I had to. Memories flooded back as I sat by my window. David at 8, his small hand in mine at the park. Me, staying up late to sew his Halloween costume, a knight's cape he loved. I'd given him everything left: time, a home. Now, he'd built a wall between us, but walls could be climbed. I opened my laptop, heart pounding, and booked a flight for the next morning. My fingers hovered over the confirm button, fear whispering I'd fail. But I clicked it, sealing my choice. Packing was a quiet rebellion. I folded my favorite blue sweater, the one David said brought out my eyes. My suitcase felt heavy with purpose, each item a reminder of who I was. I glanced at Clara's house across the street, her porch light glowing like encouragement. Fear lingered. Would David turn me away again? But I couldn't stay here, wondering. I needed to see his world, to understand why he'd shut me out. As I zipped the suitcase, a question burned. What was waiting for me at his door? I stood at his door, heart pounding. Something wasn't right inside. The plane had landed hours ago, and the taxi ride through David's city felt like a journey to another world. Tall buildings loomed, their shadows cold, matching the chill in my chest. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet, with neat lawns and unfamiliar smells of blooming jasmine. I clutched my suitcase, its handle digging into my palm. Memories flickered: David and me baking cookies, his giggles filling our old kitchen. Now, his cruel words echoed, "Too old." My knees trembled as I stepped onto his porch. The flight had been long, my mind racing with questions. Why had he pushed me away? I saw his face in every stranger at the airport, his boyish smile from years ago. We'd been so close, sharing secrets, dreams. I taught him to ride a bike, my hands steadying him. Now, I felt unsteady, alone in this strange place. The air smelled of rain, heavy, like my thoughts. I wondered if he'd even open the door. Would he turn me away again? My breath caught, but I had to know the truth. I hesitated, staring at his red door, paint chipped at the edges. My heart thumped, loud as a drum in my ears. I knocked, 3 sharp raps, each one a plea. The wait felt endless, seconds stretching like hours. Footsteps came, heavy, reluctant. David opened the door, his eyes wide, face pale. "Mom," he stammered, voice tight. He didn't invite me in, but I stepped forward, and he moved aside. Inside, I saw a woman's coat on a hook. Children's toys scattered clues of a life he hadn't shared. The house smelled of fresh paint and something sweet. Maybe cookies, but it felt wrong, like a stage set for someone else's story. David stood stiff, avoiding my eyes. No warmth, no hug. My chest ached, but I held my head high. I'd come too far to crumble. The toys, a small truck, a doll hinted at secrets. Who lived here with him? Why hide it? My fingers tightened on my suitcase, curiosity burning through my fear, pulling me deeper into his world, toward whatever he was keeping from me. My son had a new family and he never told me they existed. I stood in David's living room, my heart sinking like a stone in water. A woman appeared, her smile kind but cautious, her dark hair tied back. "I'm Lisa," she said, extending a hand. 2 children peeked from behind her, a boy and girl, maybe 5 and 7, their eyes wide, shy. David's face was a mask, no explanation offered. I forced a smile, but inside, I was breaking. A wife, grandchildren. He'd built a whole life and locked me out. I'd dreamed of being a grandmother, rocking babies, telling stories like I did with David. I saw it so clearly, tiny hands in mine, teaching them to plant tulips in spring. But these children didn't know me. Lisa offered tea, her voice soft, but her glances at David were nervous, like she carried a secret. I sat on their couch, its fabric stiff under me, feeling like an intruder. My son, my boy, had chosen to erase me from this picture. The betrayal cut deep, sharp as a winter wind. Flashbacks hit me hard. David at 12, proud when I cheered at his soccer games. Me, saving pennies for his college, my hands raw from work. I'd given him everything, yet here I was, a stranger in his home. Lisa's kindness couldn't hide the truth. David had kept them from me. Why? The question gnawed, relentless. The children whispered to each other, their voices soft, like distant bells. David avoided my gaze, stirring his tea too long. Something was wrong, and I needed to know what he was so afraid to tell me. Over dinner, my son hid his family, not because of my age, but his shame. The table was set with care, plates gleaming, the smell of roast chicken filling the air. I tried to stay calm, asking Lisa about her life, the kids. Her answers were warm but guarded, her eyes flicking to David. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice steady but raw. David's fork clattered. He snapped, "I thought you'd judge us." His words hung heavy, like smoke. Judge? I'd taught him love, not prejudice. Lisa spoke up, her voice soft but clear. "David worried you wouldn't accept our marriage, or my kids from before." My heart stopped. Their interracial marriage, her children from another man, these were his secrets. I stared at him, my son, the boy I raised to see hearts, not differences. I'd marched for equality in the 70s, my voice hoarse from chanting. How could he think I'd judge? The realization hit. His shame, not my age, had built this wall. My eyes stung, but I held his gaze, needing to understand why he'd misjudged me so deeply. The room felt small, the air thick with unspoken words. The children ate quietly, unaware of the storm between us. Lisa's hand rested on the table, trembling slightly. David looked down, his jaw tight. I felt betrayed, not just by his secrecy, but by his doubt in me. I'd given him my life, my love, and he'd assumed the worst. My chest ached, but anger burned too. I needed to speak, to set this right. What would I say to make him see the mother he'd pushed away? I looked my son in the eyes and demanded the truth. After dinner, I asked David to step into the living room, away from Lisa and the kids. The air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. My hand steadied on the armrest of his couch, its fabric cool against my skin. "Why did you think I'd judged you?" I asked, my voice firm but not cruel. His face crumpled, eyes darting to the floor. I saw the boy I raised, not the man who'd hurt me. But I needed answers, and I wasn't leaving without them. I took a breath, the smell of leftover chicken lingering. "I worked double shifts, David," I said. "I scrubbed floors, skipped meals, so you could have a future." My voice trembled, but I held his gaze. "I taught you love, not judgment. How could you think I'd turn away from your family? His silence stung, but I pressed on. I crossed a country to be here. Despite your words, I deserve to know why you shut me out. My heart pounded, but I stood tall, my dignity a shield against his doubt. David's eyes glistened, his voice barely a whisper. I was scared. Mom, he said, scared you'd see me as less for marrying Lisa, for taking on her kids. His words hit like a cold wave. His shame was his own, not mine. I remembered teaching him to stand up for what's right, to love fiercely. You misjudged me, I said softly. Tears spilled down his cheeks, and he choked out, I'm sorry. I nodded, forgiveness warming my chest, but I added, I'm your mother. I belong in your life. We sat in silence, the clock ticking softly. His apology felt like a crack letting light through. I saw his regret, raw and real. No more hiding, I said, my voice steady. He nodded, wiping his face. I felt lighter, my dignity restored, like a weight lifted from my shoulders. But could we rebuild what was broken? I wanted to believe we could. As I stood to rejoin the others, a new question stirred. How would we start to heal as a family? I held my grandkids close, feeling my heart mend at last. The next morning, I sat with Lisa and the children in their sunny kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee warming the air. I told stories of David as a boy, how he'd chase fireflies, his laughter bright as stars. The kids, Mia and Ethan, listened wide-eyed, their shyness melting. Lisa smiled, her shoulders relaxing. He still loves fireflies, she said, her voice soft. I saw her kindness, her strength, and felt a bond forming, like threads weaving us together. Lisa opened up, her words careful but honest. I was afraid you'd reject us, she admitted, stirring her coffee. My first marriage, people judged. I reached for her hand, feeling its warmth. I see love, not differences, I said. She nodded, eyes bright with relief. Mia tugged my sleeve, asking about my garden. I described my tulips, promising to show her how to plant them. Ethan called me grandma, and my heart swelled. The word, a gift I'd dreamed of but never expected. David joined us, his face softer, like a storm had passed. He laughed at my stories, adding his own. The kitchen filled with warmth, the clink of cups, the kids' giggles. I felt my place in their world, my legacy taking root. I'd come here hurt, but now I was building something new. The pain of David's rejection faded, replaced by hope. As we cleared the table, I wondered how this new bond would grow, what moments we'd share next. I left my son's house stronger, with a family I'd never lose. On my last day, I packed my suitcase, the blue sweater folded neatly. David hugged me, his arms tight, promising visits. We'll come to you next, he said, his voice steady. Lisa planned a family reunion, her eyes bright with ideas. I felt whole, my heart no longer fractured. Standing on their porch, I breathed in the crisp air, the scent of jasmine lingering. I'd faced rejection and found my place, stronger than ever. Before leaving, I recorded a video for Mia and Ethan on my phone. Grandma loves you, I said, smiling. Plant those tulips, be kind, and never stop dreaming. I wanted my wisdom to live in them, to carry forward. As I saved the video, I reflected on my journey from the sting of David's words to this moment of peace. I was no longer just a mother. I was a grandmother, a part of their story. Driving to the airport, I wondered when I'd see them again, what new memories we'd make. I learned one thing: never let anyone dim your light. Sitting in my hotel room, the night before my flight home, I felt the weight of my journey. My hands, still trembling from that first phone call, had steadied when I faced David. His words, "You're too old," cut deep, like a winter wind through my thin coat. But I didn't let them stop me. I crossed a country, heart pounding, to reclaim my place. Now, with my grandkids' laughter echoing in my memory, I want to share what I've learned with you, because you've been with me through this. When David pushed me away, I felt small, like my years had erased my worth. I sat in my kitchen, the clock ticking too loud, wondering if I'd lost him. But I found courage, the kind that comes from love and sacrifice. I raised him alone, my hands raw from work, my heart full of hope. That strength carried me to his door, where I found a family I didn't know. You've felt that pain too, haven't you? When someone you love shuts you out, it's a wound only resilience can heal. Forgiveness was my hardest step. David's fear, his shame hurt more than his word. But seeing his tears, I chose love over anger. I remembered teaching him to be kind, to see hearts, not differences. That choice gave me back my dignity. You can choose that too. Don't let age or doubt dim your fire. You're not too old to fight for your place, to demand respect. I felt my grandkids' arms around me, their voices calling me grandma. That joy came from standing tall. What's your story of standing up? I'm sharing this because you're part of my journey now. Picture yourself, like me, facing rejection, but choosing courage. Maybe it was a child, a friend, or even your own heart telling you you're not enough. You are. Write your story in the comments below. Tell me how you rose above. I'll read every word, because we're connected through this. My heart's lighter now, and I want yours to be too. As I packed for home, I wondered, what stories would you share? What wisdom would we build together? You're not alone, share your story, and let's heal together. Back home, I sit in my garden, the scent of tulips wrapping around me like a warm shawl. I think of Clara, my neighbor, who pushed me to go to David. She once told me about her own fight. Her sister called her too old to matter, but Clara rebuilt their bond with stubborn love. Her story lit a fire in me, and I want yours to do the same for someone else. Your strength, your pain, it's part of something bigger. Imagine sitting at your table, a cup of tea steaming, your heart open. You type a few words about a time you were pushed aside but stood firm. Maybe it was a family slight, a job overlooked, or a moment you felt invisible. Sharing it feels like a deep breath, doesn't it? I'll read your words, picture your face, feel your courage. We're a family of resilience. You and I, my grandkids' laughter taught me that connection heals. What moment made you feel seen again? Clara's story stays with me. She faced her sister's rejection, invited her for coffee, and spoke her truth. They cried, laughed, and mended what was broken. You can do that too. Write it down how you faced rejection and found your strength. Picture someone reading it, nodding, feeling less alone. That's the power we share. My suitcase is unpacked now, but my heart's full of new beginnings. I'll check the comments, waiting for your stories, because they matter. What will you write to inspire us all? This journey changed me, and I know you've got a story that can change someone too. I close my eyes, hearing Mia and Ethan's giggles, feeling Lisa's hand in mine. We built a bridge, and you can too. Type your story below. Let's make this space a garden of wisdom, where no one feels too old or too small. I'll be here, reading, because your voice matters. As I water my tulips, I wonder, what will you share to make our community stronger?